Thank you for listening to this edition of the Christian Car Guy podcast. It's brought to you by Mr. Quick Pick Lock and Road. Mr. Quick Pick is the opportunity for you to start your own roadside assistance business. If you have more investment energy than investment capital, stop working for someone else. Mr. Quick Pick Lock and Road is the opportunity to have your own home-based business, working directly with auto clubs and leveraging a national brand and marketing strategy. Mr. Quick Pick helps people who have run out of gas, locked their keys in their car, or need a jump start. An A-plus rated company with a Better Business Bureau and the 3-time winner of the Members' Choice Award for customer service. This could be the chance you've been looking for to serve others at the point of crisis and even share your walk with Christ. So whether you're looking for a business opportunity or in need of emergency roadside assistance, choose Mr. Quick Pick Lock and Road. MrQuickPick.com. Now sit back and enjoy this podcast of the Christian Car Guy Radio Show.
You've lost that driving feeling. Oh, that driving feeling.
Christian Car Guy Radio Show.
I say this calls for action, and now, nip it in the bud. Nip it in the bud. You got to nip it in the bud.
Negotiations Bible style. Bible style. Negotiations Bible style.
See the USA in your Chevrolet. America's asking you to call.
Here come the Dutch boys.
Those good guys are back.
With a look in their eye.
They mean business this time.
Pontiac, get a white dragon. Pontiac, get a white dragon. Pontiac, it's a breakaway car this year.
Good morning. You are listening to the Truth Network and the Christian Car Guy, and obviously my voice sounds a little bit different than the Christian Car Guys, but Bob Young is in the studio with me. My name is Darrin, kind of an old stand-in every now and then for Robbie and the guys. Bob, what's going on this morning?
Just really excited about our potential and hope we touch some lives today.
All right. Well, we are, I'm going to say right now, I'm just going to ask people to pray for us this morning, to pray for Kim, our producer this morning. The station got struck by lightning last week, and we're still working a bug or two out periodically. So bear with us this morning if we cut in or out a little bit or jump in or out of a break quicker than normal. Just hang with us. Robbie is on his way to Colorado, in spite the best advice of some of his friends. He had a little incident this week. And he was planning a vacation. His father and daughter and granddaughter and he and maybe a couple others were going out to Colorado to go fishing. And Bob and he had a little fun and excitement this week. I know you probably want to let Robbie share more about that later, but
yeah, we'll
Bob,
leave that story for Robbie to tell. But yeah, there was a little excitement, and we wish him well and hope he has the most fun he possibly can in his current condition. Yeah,
we'll leave that as a tease for those of you that know Robbie really well and you know the history of Robbie's life. He survived cancer, and that was an awesome thing, and had a big celebration with a bunch of guys on a Jeep adventure and got crushed by a Jeep and broke himself in half. He fell out of a tree stand backwards one time.
Was he raking leaves?
He was not raking leaves at that time, I don't think, but fell out of a tree stand backwards one time and broke his back. And nothing quite that serious, but we're going to leave that tease and let Robbie tell you a little bit about it later on. We are also, during the show, we want to encourage you to call in this morning to 866-348 7884, which is 866-34-TRUTH. We would love to hear from you on this particular subject. Have you ever been on a relief effort, maybe a tornado relief effort if you're out in the Midwest, flood relief effort if you are around the coast, or again, maybe in the heartland, there's a lot of floods there, hurricane relief, wildfire relief, The reason I'm asking that is last week on the Christian Car Guy, and I think maybe on Kingdom Pursuits, Robbie had Andy Bowersox on with Energized Ministries. And Andy literally and his team on, I think, Thursday of last week threw together a thing, and the Darrios all over the Triad of North Carolina. Those of you who are not in the Triad or in North Carolina, you don't know what the Triad is, but it's a few little cities here. A little restaurant chain called Darrios jumped in with us, allowed us to put some trailers out at their places so that we could fill those trailers full of baby diapers, wipes, cleaning supplies, water. And a few of us jumped in a bus pulling a trailer on Monday morning about 5 a.m. and left out of here, and we're in Houston Tuesday morning and helping with flood relief, easy for me to say, flood relief all week. And that was such a blessing. And I think there's a biblical principle that you can't outgive God. And so we would love to hear your stories of you trying to outgive God and God giving you a blessing way beyond what you felt like you gave to others in the midst of that. So we would love to hear from you this morning, wherever you're at. There is something going on, as Bob already mentioned, there is something going on everywhere in the world right now, it seems like. There was a earthquake in Mexico 2 days ago. Hurricane Harvey in Texas. And then there is Hurricane Irma coming into Florida right now. And I've got a little bit of insight on that I would love to share with you guys later. Some things I never thought about until I met some of these people down in Houston this last week.
This morning I saw on the news, I think it's Jose coming in next. And it's hitting a place that got destroyed the other day. Not Bermuda,
Barbuda.
Barbuda.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, it's just so much going on.
Yeah, and the FEMA director said, that we've got stuff ready to go. We've got people spooled up. We've got all the supplies ready to go to be airlifted in or boat lifted in, and yet we can't do it because we've got to wait for Jose to clear out for us to get in there and to help with that. And I my heart really goes out. So again, pray for those relief efforts all across the world. And if you're up in the Northwest listening to the Christian Car Guy this morning, then there's stuff for you to do up there that may or may not have anything to do with hurricanes. The whole state of Oregon, it feels like, is on fire. I looked at a map that my wife showed me a few minutes ago, and I couldn't see any of Oregon because of all of the little flames that were on the map. And so
1,300 and some wildfires burning in Oregon. And I was not even aware of the fire situation because, hurricanes and floods have been the predominant thing that we've been seeing. And it just amazed me that there were that many fires going on.
So one of the things that I thought about, I actually thought about you, Bob. One of the first things, literally one of the first people back here that I thought about was you when I got on the ground down there. And we'll talk about our experience on the ground down there a little bit later. But one of the first places that we went was a little tiny town of Rose City, Texas. Rose City is literally still underwater right now. They'll be the last town to dry up because of the way the river systems work there and them having to let all the water out of the dams. I've got a friend that's a pastor in that area. I've got two friends that are pastors in that area. And I called one of them when we knew we were coming down and said, hey, we're coming down. Do you know of people that are really wounded and hurt right now that need some help? Do you know of churches that have been flooded that we could maybe come alongside and help those churches? And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. We're going to have Andy Bowersox on as well. And those of you that know Energized Ministries know it's the mission of Energized Ministries to come alongside pastors and churches and to love on them in a very unique way and in a proactive way typically. But in this instance, we're going to be a little bit more reactive. And the first place we pulled up was literally a salvage yard, and it was underwater. And I thought, man, it probably doesn't hurt a lot of the parts on some of those cars, but what does that do, Bob? I mean, it just is something that simple. What does that do to alternators and electrical systems and all that?
So much of that stuff won't have any value other than scrap value afterwards. The computers, the electronic systems in the car. And that's what's, you hear about flood cars,
Mm-hmm.
and they really are stringent about flood cars not getting back into the market, because you can make the repairs, but there's stuff afflicted by water that will never be 100% again.
Right.
And there's so much electronics now in a 60 model something. You could probably dip them in water and dry them out and run them again, because the electronics wasn't that prevalent back then. But nowadays, so many things, everything's electronic.
Right.
And it's just, the car will never be the same, and that's why they're so stringent about getting the flood cars, absolutely destroyed instead of put back on the road.
That's I got to thinking about that. In this instance, there are brand spanking new cars that were flooded. We saw used car lots, that just the entire lot was flooded out. We obviously people's homes. There were so many people, hundreds of thousands of people, who didn't think their house was going to get flooded in this. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of those people, tell some of their stories. We're going to have Andy Bowersox on with us in a few minutes. You're listening to the Christian Car Guy on the Truth Network.
Well, if you ever plan to motor west,
Well, I hope that Robbie is not walking 500 miles this morning. He is driving couple of thousand maybe, headed out towards Colorado to do some fly fishing, and I wished I were with him, but I'm happy to be sitting in here. My name's Darrin Koone. I am the unofficial Christian Car Guy this morning, and we've got the official Christian... What does he call you?
Christian junkyard guy.
Is that offensive, or is
no,
that's a...
Lord, no, because, a lot of people want to say, oh, Bob, you should call it a salvage yard. Junk is just so, demeaning to your business. And I'm like, hey, if a car's got a good scratch on it, it's junk. It needs to be cut in half, sell the front half, and sell the back half, and,
So Bob's not a politically correct guy.
No, and I'm not offended by the word junk,
Good. All right. Well, you are listening again to the Christian Car Guy this morning. We thank you for praying already. Your prayers already this morning have made a difference. When we started the first segment, we couldn't hear ourselves talk or think, and now we can, and that is awesome. And Kim, our producer, is a hero and just done a great job getting us going this morning.
Actually, hearing our voices is much better than hand signals. But
yeah, it is, because we didn't work out what the hand signals meant beforehand, so I thought I was stealing second base.
Was it any good?
It was great. I tried to steal second on one of those hand signals, Kim, but I got thrown out before sliding in.
I may have told you to go for home.
Oh, well, there you go.
I don't know.
Thank you. So last Monday morning, actually the adventure started on Saturday morning, loading up, and a lot of you listeners from the Triad area brought merchandise, diapers, wipes, water, cleaning supplies. Every now and then somebody snuck in a baby carrier or something, things that I wouldn't have thought of that flood relief victims would need. And we got down there Tuesday morning, drove all night, all through the day. It was about a 22-hour trip to get down there. Now, it shouldn't have been a 22-hour trip.
Yeah,
it should have been about a 15 or 16-hour trip. However, we had a trailer that might not have been, but might have been a little overloaded. We didn't weigh it, so we're going to go with, surely it wasn't overloaded.
Tires may have been a little old or something.
The tires might have been a little old, but a good brother here in the area loaned us his trailer, and we didn't bring it back in quite as good a shape as we left here with it, I think. The axles are greased now, better. And it's got at least 2 new tires on it. We blew 3 tires in a matter of a few hours, and had to keep replacing tires on the trailer on the way down. That was a lot of fun. So pulling a 24-foot trailer behind a 40-foot tour bus, and then trying to find a place to park that thing and get a tire replaced was an adventure. And so you would think, man, all this frustration of that. And honestly, the team that went down was an awesome team of people. None of us really knew each other all that well, but everybody pitched in.
You do now, huh?
We do now, yeah. We're calling it a family reunion when we get together now. So anyway, we went down, got down there. I had some contacts down there. Andy Bowersox made some contacts down there. I'm actually from the southwestern part of the United States, and my parents, my mom grew up in West Texas, and I went to seminary in Texas, and I have a lot of friends who are pastors and ministers in that area. So we made some contact with them, and we hit the ground running first thing Tuesday morning. And actually, when one of the little towns we stopped at was a town called Rose City, Texas. Sweet little lady there. Her name's Bonnie. She's the mayor. And there's only we asked Bonnie, how many people do you have in your community? And she said, well, I have 235 water meters and not a whole lot of businesses. So there's about 235 houses in Rose City, Texas. Well, Rose City, Texas is still underwater. Tuesday morning, I went out on an airboat. Andy went out on an airboat. And the reason we did is not because we wanted to be tourists and sightseeing. We honestly didn't ask for that experience. There's a gentleman there. His name's Dennis Landry. And Dennis, really neat guy. He owns a business there, little entrepreneur guy, and has an airboat and some heavy equipment. And he's seen that area flood before. He's lived there a long time. He thought his house was going to be fine. Thought it would be no problem at all, because his house is kind of on a creek there, and he had it up above quite a ways, and thought he'd going to be fine. But he started moving some of his heavy equipment to higher ground, just in case. And before the week was over, Dennis single-handedly rescued pretty much everybody in his town with his airboat. And he got, I think, 250, 260 people out. And and some of them were bedridden, got them out, got them to a dry spot so that the National Guard could come in and helicopter people out from there, because this little town flooded so fast because of the gigantic lakes up north of Houston, 75 miles north of Houston, Toledo Bend Lake. They had to start letting water out there, and that water caused that to rise up.
Are they still letting water out of those lakes?
They are not. They finally stopped letting the water out of the lakes, I think, now. The last I heard, Toledo Bend was not letting any out. I don't think the attics or any of those were still letting water out. I think they were able to stop that a lot quicker than they thought they were going to.
That's awesome.
So most of Houston is dry now, but the parts of the area are still underwater, and the need there is pretty phenomenal. But out of all the trouble that we had there, the blessing that we got, that we received from the people who were the victims, was pretty amazing. And that's one of the things we would love for you to do this morning, is call in and talk to us. Maybe you're in that area. We know we've got listeners in that area. But 866-348-TRUTH, which is 348-7884, 866-348-7884. We'd love for you to call in this morning and talk to Bob and I about your experience of trying to bless others and being blessed in return through a relief effort, maybe a mission trip, things such as that, because God always shows up in those situations and does some amazing things. And in the next segment, we're going to talk very specifically about some of the things that we saw that God did for us while we were down there and for the people of South Houston. And we're going to get to Andy Bowersox and Energize Ministries, who's starting a campaign today called Pray, Give, Go. And you can imagine that that's praying for the relief victims, giving for that, and then going and helping. We've got avenues to help you do that. We want you to call us today, tell us that story, find a way that you can hook up with somebody in your area. You're listening to the Christian Car Guy this morning on the Truth Network.
Roll it, roll it, roll it, roll it, roll it, roll it.
Good morning. You are listening to the Christian Car Guy this morning, and obviously this is not him, but Bob Young, the Christian Junkyard Guy, is in the studio with me, and my name's Darrin Koone. We're going to be talking about this flood that hit Houston. The hurricane hit, and the hurricane did a lot of damage to the little town of Rockport, Texas, right there on the coast, and a few others. And then that thing just hung around for a week and dumped 52, 53 inches of water. And before the break, I was talking about a guy named Dennis Landry. I have a good friend there that I say good friend. Now this only happens in Christianity, I think. I have a good friend that I've not talked to since about 1994. Okay, but we are good friends. And I called him and said, Brian, I'm coming to town, and Energize Ministries, we want to come down. We want to love on some pastors in the area. We know that pastors always need a little bit of extra encouragement and a little bit of extra love, but there is some stuff happening here that's going to make that even more important. And so that was on Andy Bowersock's heart, and mine as well. And Brian hooked us up with this guy named Dennis Landry. And Dennis said, I want you guys to stop here. I want to put you on my airboat. I want to take you into the flood area. I want to show you the devastation firsthand. And so when we got there, the mayor was waiting on us, and Dennis was waiting on us. And the mayor and Dennis, Miss Bonnie, the mayor, took us into an area right through the National Guard lines and the FEMA guys and everything else where nobody else could go, and put us on an airboat and took us in. And we've got a lot of pictures and a lot of video, and Andy will be putting most of that up on EnergizeMinistries.com website, because as of today, Energize Ministries is launching a campaign called Pray, Give, Go. And so what we want you to do is to obviously be praying for the victims. But let me tell you this, they're praying for you. If you've already sent money, if you've already sent water or diapers or people, those people down there, everybody that I met, blessed me so much more than we ever thought about blessing them. It was pretty amazing. And Dennis said, Darrin, I want to take you into Rose City, Texas, because this will be the last city to dry up, because it's the last city on the river. And every time this happens, and it has happened in the past, we don't get any help. FEMA will come in and help us kind of rescue people and stuff like that. But then after that, it's the big cities where all the media is and all of those things. And he wasn't saying it in a hateful way to say, well, I'm mad at Houston or anything like that. He was just saying,
stating facts.
The squeaky door gets the grease, right? And so he said, I want to put on your heart, is there any way we can get the sheetrock donated? We can get a lot of the merchandise. We can even get money donated to help some of these poor people. And this guy is okay. He said, I don't need anything. My house was going to be fine. Now, his house ended up flooding, and a lot of his heavy equipment flooded, and all of his vehicles flooded. And I saw his house, and I saw all the other houses in this little town. But he said, I'm not worried about me. I'll take care of me. But I need some people with a heart for others to come down here and help these people put sheetrock back in their houses. Because once you tear all this sheetrock out, once you tear the subfloor out, all this stuff, they might have four walls, they might have a house, but they have no privacy. They can't even change their clothes in their own house with any kind of privacy. You can't even go to the bathroom with having privacy, and so they put sheets up on the walls and things like that. And many of you listeners have been to third world countries on mission trips, and you've seen things like that. Bob, you talked about going up to New Jersey a few years ago and helping people in Sandy.
That was one of the most awesome experiences of my life. We had been mission trips and and done other things, but we were there solely to demolition a house. Mm-hmm. And if you want to see young people work hard, let them tear up something. It was just great to be able to help these people by tearing that house down, so they didn't have to spend their money on the demolition of the house, and they could save it put the money toward rebuilding. And the young people just had a great time. I mean, they absolutely loved it. We did it 2 years in a row, and the first year we were productive, but the second year we knew more about what we were doing and the order of which we needed to do things a little better, and just had a great time. And the people were just so grateful. And, you know, you get this feeling that, well, I'm going to go help somebody. And then all of a sudden you realize that you've received more of a blessing than they ever could have, because, you know, when you're out, when I'm having a bad day, I'm focused on Bob. And when I focus on somebody else, my days get a whole lot better. And just going out and helping somebody is the key to turning things around for me. It's helped me through a lot of stuff. Yeah, and you know, I think that one of the things that I want to say is we were in a neighborhood on southwest Houston. Won't say exactly where, but when we told a few people we were going to this particular neighborhood, they kind of shook their heads and said, "Are you sure you want to go into that neighborhood?" And Andy and I, neither one have ever backed away from an adventure. And so, you know, Andy said, "Well, yeah, sure, we're going into that neighborhood." And he, you know, kind of looked at me and, "Yeah, we're going into the neighborhood." And I think one person even asked if we were packing, and they didn't mean Pampers. So we said, "Yeah, we're, you know, if they're in need," and there was a church there. It was a fairly new church plant in that area, and they were asking for help. And they wanted to reach lost people and give lost people water and supplies and diapers, and we wanted to be a part of that mission. So we went into this neighborhood, and people said, "Well, if you're going to go, don't be there after dark." Well, you know the next thing. We were there long after dark. We pulled into this neighborhood, big black bus, you know, says Energized Ministries all over it, and about everywhere we went with the bus, people started flocking to us like we were Moses, because they knew we were there for relief efforts. They didn't know what we had, but they knew they needed some things. We stopped at one shopping center to get lunch in Beaumont, Texas. We didn't actually get lunch because there was no water in Beaumont, Texas at the time. We stopped at a Jason's Deli. Well, we didn't get any food, but before we got to the front door of the store and back to the bus, people came out of the shops there saying, "Do you guys have water?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am, we do have some water. Do you need some water?" And she said, yeah, I need water. And I said, "Well, come on over to the trailer and we'll get you loaded up." Well, before long, we've got a line of people there getting water, and we just stopped in a parking lot to get lunch. And then they, you know, all of these were younger ladies, and they needed diapers, and they needed wipes, and they needed cleaning supplies. And so we unloaded and filled people's trunks full of water and diapers. God's plan came to the front, huh? It was pretty unique. God's presence was very, very clear in Beaumont, Texas that day. While we were there, we also passed an old car dealer that had been turned into a church building. And we saw a line of people, and we weren't real sure what that was, but we figured we knew what it was. And so we thought, well, on our way out of town, we're going to stop by there and just pray over the pastors there and love on them and see what, you know, they're doing. And so we stopped. Andy ran in and said, "Hey, you know, where's some of the leaders? Just what are y'all doing? And we just want to bless you guys and pray for you right now." And they said, "Well, we're handing out stuff, but we've run out of diapers and we've run out of wipes." We happened to have a trailer load of diapers and wipes. And so we backed the bus up to the building there and started unloading wipes and diapers. And we were so blessed. The pastors there, it was actually 3 different churches that came together in that area. Might not have ever done anything together before. I don't have a clue. But it was 3 different churches using this one church's building because they were dry, and blessing the people of Beaumont. And so, again, when people saw our bus back up to the church building, here come the people, you know, because they know, okay, that the church building's got some supplies now because they were running out. Wow. And God kept showing up in those ways, and it was just such a tremendous blessing to us. We ended up in this little less than perfect neighborhood. You know, it wasn't the quintessential picket fence, 3.5 kids and, you know, a family. And it was getting dark, and we were just literally pulling cases of water
boxes of diapers and supplies, and literally just set up a shopping store right there on the street. So, and people would walk up and rather than grabbing everything they could, they would tear a box. If there was a box of 2 or 3 wipes together, they would tear one apart and say, hey, I just need one. I don't want to save one for my neighbors. And I want to tell you after the break about some of the stories there, amazing things that God is doing. If you're listening right now, please call 1-866-34-TRUTH. Tell us your God-appointed stories where God has outblessed you when you were trying to bless other people. You're listening to The Christian Car Guy on the Truth Network. Good morning. You are listening to The Christian Car Guy, and the Christian Car Guy is in a car right now headed towards the Rocky Mountains, the Twin Lakes area of Leadville, Colorado.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, the trees are so beautiful this time of the year, Bob. I don't want to make you more jealous.
Rub it in a little. Yeah. There you go.
But and the air is crisp and cool in the morning and dry, and it's so gorgeous. But Sheila,
we're having some crisp, cool air around here these days.
We are, and that's great. Sheila and I will be up there in a couple of weeks, actually doing a little bit of work on our family cabin up there in Colorado. But
need any help?
Yeah, you can come. So we are talking to Bob Young, the Christian Junkyard Guy, and I need to apologize if you have tried to call in. You may very well have tried on a line that I've been giving you, and we had a lightning strike this week, and still working a couple of details out. We were trying to get Andy Bowersox on, and he was calling in, and he is on with us now. So, Andy, I don't know if you've been listening the whole time and heard what we've talked about, but we learned some things about pastors and leaders with regard to what happens after they have put out everything they have to offer almost during a situation like this. And I would love for you to talk about that a little bit and how Energized Ministries wants to push back on the kingdom of Satan in that realm.
Yeah, so, well, first of all, thanks for having me on. Darrin,
good morning, brother.
You're not. Hey, Brother Bob, how we feeling today?
Most excellent, most excellent.
Both of you guys just bring smiles to my face when I get to run into you here and there. Sorry, I'm not in the studio with you, but Darrin, I did hear a little bit about it earlier on, and I didn't catch all the program. But you mentioned being down there. We've been down there with a small team, some people from our office, and then a few volunteers. And it was, I would say, it was a heartbreaking and eye-opening trip. For those of you that are listening, our ministry is about supporting kingdom-based spiritual leadership, and we always call that Christ-centered, biblically-based leadership. But and so I guess the way this thing came about is the week before I was watching like the rest of the world with what's happening down there, and I saw this video of the pastor in his little boat rescuing people, and it just sort of hit me. I feel like the Lord just kind of nudged me a little bit to say, hey, there are these guys down there that need help. That our whole ministry base is providing care for the caregivers. And so it's exhausting to be pulled in multiple directions. The spiritual needs, the emotional, the physical needs, even the financial needs that these pastors and other caregivers are being tapped for right now is draining. And so we went down as sort of an initial evaluation trip, but then also to give out relief supplies. And Darrin, I think. I believe it was actually the very first stop where we stopped in an area called Beaumont, Texas, and all we did was stop to get some lunch, and the restaurants were closed. There were signs on in this little shopping center and all the places of business that said, hey, there's no fresh water. We're closed. And as we were walking back to our bus, there were some ladies from a salon that came out next door and said, hey, do you guys happen to have any water in there? And we said, sure, and probably in a period of 20 minutes, there must have been 30 people that showed up just looking for fresh water. So the needs are very, very real and prevalent. That was our first dose of it. But to get back to your initial question, Darrin, you asked me about the spiritual needs of the pastors and the leaders. And one of the statistics, I guess one of the partnerships that we have is with a group called Pastor Serve that's based out of Kansas City. And they, very similar heart to ours, we want to provide and return care for those that are giving. And so they share with us a number that they actually got from FEMA that says within 3 years of a natural disaster or a large-scale disaster like that 50% of the evangelical pastors will leave the area, either move out or leave their ministry because of the added stress that these situations create and all the different personal areas of their lives that are affected by it. And so that's one of the things that we want to work to counteract. We specifically are building relationships with probably 3 to 5 different churches that you mentioned, the Pray, Give, Go. You know, we want people to be praying for the whole area. We want people to be giving towards the relief efforts and the physical needs, but then also go with us as we send work teams down to help some of the smaller churches, maybe even the pastor's residents, but restore, renovate, and help remodel these places that have been damaged and get them back up and going again as quickly as possible. So that was a long answer to your question, but that's what this is all about.
No, it's perfect. One of the things that one of the guys told me when we were there, which blew my mind, he said, "I hope this next hurricane hits here again." And I started to slap him, thinking he was delirious or something. And he said, "No, seriously, I hope it hits here. We've already been hurt. We've already been damaged. There's only so much damage that can be done. But worse than that is if it hits over on the East Coast, this was a flood event. It was not a wind event. And most of these people didn't have flood insurance. And so they will not have financial means to rebuild their houses. Think about if you're the pastor of a small church and let's say you've got 100 people and 30 people leave the area, move, or they're financially destitute now because they went without work for a month or 2 or 3 or 4. All of the money they do have, they're pouring back into rebuilding their house, and there will be small church buildings that'll be damaged through this that will be sitting there for probably years. Unfortunately, that's how massive this was. And so you think about the amount of depression a pastor could possibly have. And I speak as one who spent 20 years as a full-time senior pastor. So you're the pastor of a small church. Your church has been wounded either by the members of your church that got hurt or financial hits of people moving away because they had to leave, their house is destroyed, so they moved to go visit family in Oklahoma for 2 months or whatever, and they end up just staying there. And so now the people have left. There's no help left for those pastors, and so they sit there kind of holding the bag, and that's why it's so important. I want to encourage you guys. I know that Robbie will have some of this information on the ChristianCarGuy.com website. Andy will have it up. They're producing a video that'll be released today, Andy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we will have it. And I was just going to say, Darrin, it's important for listeners to understand and recognize this is not a one-shot deal for us.
No.
There are a lot of good relief organizations out there. I'm not downing any of them, but there's a lot that their mission is in and out, right? Come pick this up and take off. And our thing is to build relationships. So we obviously can't impact every single church that's there, but there's a few that we can. And so that's our thing. We want to be support there over the next several months. And the ways to get involved will be listed on our website. It's energizeministries.com. We'd love to have people keep up with our activities on Facebook, and I think you've got that information there. It's just Energize Ministries or on the other social media channels too.
Right.
But by all means, pray, give, go. You'll see that show up on our site here by the end of the day, and it's sort of a work in progress as we go on. But we'd love to have you get involved in one of those ways or all 3 of those ways.
So if you're listening today, we're almost out of time, but if you're listening today, please go to energizeministries.com. ChristianCarGuy.com will have some of that stuff. You can look me up on Facebook. It's Darrin Koone, Koone. We will have more trips going down. We need some backs now. We need some people that will be willing to go down with us and hang some sheetrock, hang some doors, all that sort of thing. If there's going to be multiple missions to go down, and as Andy said, there's a lot of different people that are helping, but the Christian Car Guy, Robbie Dillmore, we will even, at some point when he's physically ready to go, we'll try to drag Robbie down with us. And so if you want to come on a mission trip where he's involved as well, then we want to encourage you to do that. Go to energizeministries.com, christiancarguy.com. You're listening to the Christian Car Guy Show on the Truth Network.